So we start off with this particular problem. And again, you see E, you're like, it's E. But E is one of the easiest ones to work with. So let's let U equal to negative 2x. Okay? So what would du equal? Negative 2 dx, maybe? Okay. And then that leads dx to equal to negative 1/2 du. All right, so I have my integral of e to the u du with a negative 1/2 multiplied to the front, correct? All right. Well, now, again, these are x values, so we need to turn them into u values. Now, this is pretty tough too. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. All right, good. All right, and then negative 2 times 1? Negative 2. Okay, well, this is going to be a common occurrence in problems. The majority of the time in these problems, when we get a negative out front, which means we got a negative derivative the majority of the time, what's going to end up happening in these problems is we're going to see that the lower limit of integration has a greater value than the upper limit of integration. Now, why might that be significant?
Wait, say that again?
The lower limit of integration is greater than the upper limit of integration. So how might this be significant? Well, flip back to your properties of integrals, properties of the definite integrals. Yes?
Why does it change from 1 to negative 2?
Because this is an x value, so the u value is negative 2 times it. Does that help? Good.
Can you say that it was, we'll say that the 1 is like a 2?
Yeah.
Would it be negative 4?
Yeah.
You said the 1 is an x value?
Yes. Remember, these are upper limits of integration and lower limits of integration. So if we're talking about graphically what's happening here, here's 0 and here's 1. So, and I'm not going to draw the correct graph here intentionally, but we're talking about going from here to here, right? 0 to 1. Well, that's when you had this in terms of x, and this is in terms of f of x. Well, now we've changed this to u. So when we change this function in terms of u, we're no longer interested in these x values. We're interested in negative 2 to 0. And our function changed. Our function is no longer this. Our function is e to something. Well, I'm going to graph this one correctly. This is the region we're interested in. E to the negative 2x. Let's graph it correctly. I guess that would have helped all along if I'd done that. All right, if you got the negative exponent, it basically reflects about the y-axis. Now there's a little bit of difference here because this is a 2 and this is not a 2. But essentially we're going from finding this region to finding this region. Now this region right here is actually going to be bigger, but so what is significant about this negative out here? You can flip it, right? So it becomes positive 1/2 of the integral from
Negative 2 to 0.
negative 2 to 0 of e to the u du. Good. Okay. So, let's do the arithmetic. What is the antiderivative of the definite integral with e to the u on it? E to the u, yeah. And we're gonna go from -2 to 0. Again, don't let e mess you up. The derivative of e is e, or the derivative of e to the x is e to the x, so the antiderivative of e to the x would be e to the x plus some constant if it's an indefinite integral, but this is a definite integral, so it's just e to the u. So it's 1/2 of e to the 0 minus e to the -2nd. Are we okay here? E to the 0 is?
0.
One.
Thank you.
Sorry,
That actually hurt my head.
I'm dumb.
How'd you get a concussion? I was working math problem.
Someone said power 0 is 0.
Okay. And that's the exact answer. I don't know what the calculator equivalent would be. It would have to be an approximation as far as we're concerned here. Any question there? So again, just to sum this up. I start off in terms of x. I don't like what I have in terms of x, so I want it in terms of u. So I do a u substitution. In this case, because I had my lower limit of integration greater than my upper limit of integration, I took the negative of it, which is nice because this was negative to begin with. So I go from -2 to 0. If you don't do this step, you can go straight from this step to this step and still get the correct answer. I just like dealing with positives more. And it's easier to think about going from -2 to 0 than it is going from 0 to -2. But it's not a big deal. Any question? All right. Let me pause the first video.
Is it 0.5?